Alright, happy Thursday everyone. Just continuing the series on how to take the drama out of your thinking. So this is part 3. And remember I was recapping, or I introduced the concept of cognitive distortions, and there's 11 according to the founder of cognitive behavioral theory. So basically, this cognitive distortions is basically that sense that, everything in your life is somehow, negative and bad because, a couple of things might be off kilter, right? And of course, objectively and deep down, we know that that's not true, right? And sometimes we say things without even kind of realizing what we actually mean by that or what we're actually really saying, right? So, statements like my entire life sucks, or I'm never going to be happy, or, I'm never going to get ahead in life, or any of those sorts of things, are basically cognitive distortions. And they're thoughts that may feel true, particularly in the moment, but they're not, right? And that's a good thing. And obviously as well, we're all guilty of having cognitive distortions, so, don't think there's something wrong with you if you do have those. They just reflect, how weird our brains are, because our brains hate uncertainty, right? And they love to over-focus on perceived threats and negativity. And in today's very fast-paced world, we don't have such obvious threats like saber-toothed tigers chasing after us, right? So we think everything else is a threat. And we make judgments on only partial information. We overgeneralize, taking facts about single specific situations and applying them to everything. And while they're normal, right, they create a ton and often unnecessary amount of stress. Now, there is a bit of a disclaimer, which I haven't talked about in the recent ones as well. Like, I'm introducing these 11 concepts of cognitive behavioral theory, and some of them you'll be able to catch your thoughts and build some awareness around them, right? Because once we've built some awareness around our thoughts, it gives us an option to choose a different path or to unpack and create a bit of curiosity and be inquisitive, right? But sometimes these will actually be deeply entrenched in some sort of trauma that's happened, usually in childhood, and usually from very innocuous and kind of innocent things that we've kind of had an emotional response to that, we've come to a conclusion, and then we've kind of embedded that deep into our subconscious, and it starts to come out in a lot of our patterns and the way of thinking. So what I'm suggesting is that when I get to the end of this series, I'll talk about some things that you can do to build some awareness and potentially change some of those thoughts. But realistically, sometimes you have to get into that level of subconscious, which is a whole other gamut. And all this will do is probably bring some awareness around potentially some underlying, trauma or, some subconscious beliefs that might require a bit more unpacking. And that, you can't think through that sort of stuff, right? That's a feeling thing. And not all of us are kind of geared towards that or ready to do that piece, because it's difficult. So this is very much at a conceptual level. CBT can take us so far, but it's not going to be the be-all and end-all. So, but very insightful stuff nevertheless. So keep an open mind. And as I said, just because you're having, these kind of thoughts, the good thing is that we know that they're not true, right? So that means that your life probably isn't 100% shit. And it just means that, we can work on our thoughts to realize that and give ourselves a bit of breathing space, right? So, anyway, I'll jump on to so we talked about number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And if I recap, I think we had the all or nothing approach. We had the over-generalization, we had the negative mental filter, and we had the discounting of the positives. So today we're going to talk about number 5, which is jumping to conclusions. And this is where you assume things are going to go badly without the facts to support this. Because sometimes I think as well we do that as a defensive mechanism, right? It's like if I would think of the worst possible scenario, then it can only get better from there, right? And so it's kind of like a way that we kind of try and cushion ourselves against the impact of the blow. And, there are 2 subtypes of jumping to conclusions. One is like mind reading. So you imagine what other people are thinking, often assuming that that people are reacting negatively to you, or that they have some sort of ulterior motive, right? And you kind of read and overanalyze their actions. And examples of mind reading include, look at me fumbling around with these exercise bands. Everyone must think I'm such an idiot at the gym. When I told my coach all the stuff that's been going on in my life lately, he must have thought I was such a screw up. I've decided to dress up a bit, but I bet everyone at work thought I looked like a pathetic tryhard. Those sorts of things, right? And then the other subtype is fortune telling, and this is where you predict that things will turn out badly without having the evidence to support this. And I just sort of briefly talked about that before. But this is things like, I'm never going to get better. I studied hard, but I just don't. But I just know I'm going to blow this exam. I'm destined to be unmotivated. Sloth who sleeps on their parents' slumpy basement futon forever. And yeah, so that's number 5. Now, number 6 is magnification or minimization. So this is when you blow up problems or imperfections way out of proportion or minimize your success or admirable qualities. So when you consider other people, you might do the opposite. So, you might emphasize their favorable aspects and brush aside their flaws, particularly if you find them a little bit cute, right, and you don't know them that well. Or you might look at their favorable aspects and brush aside their flaws. And when you compare yourself, you come up always short. And this is particularly easy, right, in this social media environment, because we sit there and we see like this post, which is probably just this moment in time, which is probably like a 3-second shot that someone's done on their camera, and they've probably taken about 50 shots to get the right one. Or they're showing themselves enjoying a particularly good moment, they've managed to capture that. Or a 60-second reel, and then we sort of think, oh, their whole life must be perfect, or they're living the life that I want. But you don't know what they're doing for the other, 23 hours and 56 minutes and 72 seconds, So anyway, examples of magnification and minimization. All the people in this class seem to be following the choreography, but I keep making mistakes. Have you ever done that in yoga or Pilates? Oh my God. Yeah, when you first start going to that, or like even just like one of those Les Mills classes, and you're like, all right, everyone else seems like they've been here for ages and they know all the steps, and I cannot keep up. And then like you do one class and it's like fine. Everyone else has their eating and exercise all figured out. I'm a hot mess. Look, no one has all their exercise and eating figured out. And yes, I know you're looking at me going, well, maybe you do, and it's like, well, let me put it in context for you. So as if you might have noticed, it's in on season for me, so I'm in prep, and I am trying to figure out how I'm going to balance 3 hours of cardio on top of my already 8 sessions of training a week, right? Which is a huge workload because my full-time job is in bodybuilding, right? And then I still have to kind of plan when I'm going to eat my meals and that, because I still have a full-time job that takes up 60 hours of my week, plus other activities as well. So it becomes a lot. So nobody has that perfectly down packed. I have still not, in the 10 years that I've been training, ever figured out how to do a perfect workout split as well, where you can give your body like the adequate rest it needs per body part. I'm just beginning to accept that there's probably no such thing. So another example is my sister can pull off that disheveled mum look and still look cool. But if I do so, but if I look as much as I have a wrinkle in my shirt, I look like a zombie. And just little things like that as well. Like, have you ever seen people be able to just flawlessly do those top knots and have their hair perfectly? I don't know how to do it. So I've just given up, and most of the time now I just look like a wild lion that's been kind of like left out in the wild too long. I don't know. Anyway, point being is, there are some examples, right, of how we do those cognitive distortions. And as I said, like I just came out with some of them then without even thinking about them. They just come in as part of our language, and how we kind of, it's almost like we do that in a way as well to kind of just minimize ourselves in front of other people in just general conversation as well. And particularly in Australian culture, right, where we have this tall poppy syndrome, because you will get cut down if you talk about yourself in any way that has a sniff of sounding like it's bragging, right? So we've been kind of conditioned to think this way, but also talk this way, right? And then the thing is as well, when we say things enough, we start to believe it, right? And or they already come from deep beliefs, and we're just basically repeating them out loud. So anyway, there's nothing to do now except to just become aware of these thoughts and how often they come up for you. And I'll go through the other 5 cognitive distortions over the coming days. But yeah, I'd be really keen to know any examples that you have. Share them in the comments. As I said, the more you share, the more we can learn from each other, and then find those common threads of connection, because we're all not that different.